Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Basil Considine, and today we're going to be continuing in our Intro to Fellowship series, and we'll be talking about the Fulbright program. Now, we're going to be answering a number of student questions about general information and then zeroing in on a particular program that is our focus for today, which is applying as an artist to the Fulbright programs. So before we go too further, I'll just point out that we do have a number of webinar recordings available where we delve into various related topics, including grant writing in general, applying for federal grants, fellowships, more on fellowships, study and research and teaching abroad awards more generally, soliciting a letter of invitation, and one that's not on the slide, but it should be available by the time you see this, the Dodd program. But let's do some differentiation first. So when we're talking about scholarships, fellowships, and grants, sometimes these are used generically to mean the same thing. Often they're used in a more specific capacity. So let us agree that for our purposes, a scholarship is a financial gift that does not have to be repaid. It may have some eligibility requirements. It might be something where there is a service that is required, but most of the time it's something that you have to maintain those eligibility conditions. For example, your GPA, be active in a certain society, and that is mostly it. As opposed to a fellowship, which are generally for higher dollar amounts and often considered more prestigious and usually do come with a service commitment, as opposed to grants that are more generically given by an organization for a specific purpose. Now, whether something is a research grant or a scholarship can have some tax implications. That's a different topic. But for our purposes now, we're going to be talking about funding available through one specific program, the Fulbright program, which in the realm of fellowships, and because they do call it some of them scholarships, we are talking about an external award. So not something that is granted directly by ACU. If you're applying as an ACU community member, whether student, faculty, or staff, you can apply through the university for many awards and get internal sponsorship, shortlisting on a set of applications. But also people can apply as individuals or independent scholars in many categories. So a typical fellowship application is going to require a CV or resume, something that gives a record of your relevant academic and or artistic and industry accomplishments, some sort of application or proposal narrative, a form that you fill out, these days usually on the website, and for a research project, often a budget to make sure that it's feasible, and 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. So as we look at this, we're going to examine how this stacks up. Now, in some cases, if it is something that is a teaching award, they will ask for sample syllabi. They might ask for a copy of a scholarly publication or part of your dissertation for some things, if you're applying for a dissertation completion or dissertation research project, or if you're applying in a performing arts category, you might be asked to provide some work samples, usually in the form of recordings. Even for a composer where the work exists as a score, in general, recordings are preferred and will often more richly render and make understandable your materials, because reading an orchestral score and hearing it in your head is a particular set of skills that many people who might be on the committee don't necessarily have. Now, with that, there are some common errors that come across in almost all of these, where the first one is not allowing sufficient time to write it, not paying attention to the instructions, poor writing, which takes many forms, but we'll say proofreading or not making things clear in the order expected would qualify as poor writing here. Failure to edit or proofread, failure to convey to the reviewers that your research is interesting and important, not just to you, but to other people as well. And that last one is often left out as people are rushing to fit things within a word count, and then they just don't end up noticing that it's not there. Continuing on, lack of preliminary data or research. What makes you sure that this is something to pursue? Or how do you know that this will be a good fit for the institution? We'll talk more about how to make that more clear later. a project that is too ambitious. Now, a little bit of ambition is good, but they want to be clear when they're reviewing your application that they think that you can actually do it. And so something that might require an unusual skill set or prior knowledge, if you have that, you absolutely want to make that clear. This next one, limited impact, that's an interesting one because that actually comes up in all sorts of different applications in ways you might not expect. If you're applying, for example, as a Fulbright English teaching assistant, you might not think that impact is something that's going to be very widespread because you have only a certain number of students in the classroom, but you can talk about how, things you've done that will have an impact beyond that classroom with the individuals or other activities that you might engage in or the skill sets that you have developed to make it a truly memorable interaction. Limited support from your institution. So when you are applying for the Fulbright through an institution, the most common case is you're a student or faculty at the institution. They have the capacity for the student and awards to nominate a short list. Now they'll pass on all the applications, but there'll be a certain number that they can flag as, this one we're really behind it. And this is an opportunity to make your application stand out. Now, it says limited support from your institution. Let's read that both ways. That could be the institution you're coming from. It could also be the institution you're going to. There's many Fulbright awards will invite a letter of invitation and heavily weight it. And others, because of various cultural or other logistical things, may not require it. And it's more you apply for a specific opening or you are assigned to it. But if you happen to have that letter of invitation from an institution saying, hey, we would really like this person to come. They have done all these good things. We think they'll be great. They'll be adding something we don't have. That speaks very well in your favor, whether you're there as a teacher, whether you're there as a researcher, whether you're there as an artist or something else. A few more resources you can poke through later or watch our other webinars for more in-depth exploration. Let's do a very short introduction to the Fulbright program here. So the Fulbright program was founded in 1946 in the immediate aftermath of World War II, when the so-called Cold War was already starting to become a thing where people looking back at the isolationism of the 1930s thought, we want the world to be a more connected place. And Senator William Fulbright proposed a radical program to engage the United States with the rest of the world. And that is the program that is now called the Fulbright program, which is, by the way, 78 years old now and going on to has become one of the most prestigious and competitive grant programs in the world. And because it is a bilateral series of academic and cultural exchanges, that means that not only do Americans go to other countries, but people from other countries come to the United States. Now, since we're based at Abilene Christian University, we're going to be talking today about the programs for Americans going abroad. And 5 may seem a lot, but there are actually a lot more specialty awards. For example, there's a MTV University MTVU Fellowship, and many special ones funded by particular countries. So we'll touch on those as they come up. But for the most part, we're going to focus right now on some awards that you might be looking at as either a recent graduate, an academic, and we'll say that we'll count graduate students as academics here. You might be a business professional looking to have a different experience and discover part of the world while teaching other people what you've done, or many other categories, including K-12 teachers. Yes, we have a vibrant exchange program where foreign teachers come to the U.S. and U.S. teachers go to other countries, which can be a really memorable sabbatical year, let me tell you. All right, let's start with some key links. And I say key links because there are far more Fulbright program variants and subprograms than fit on this slide. But we're going to talk about 3 that you might be considering if you are an artist. Now, for the purposes of what we're talking about today, whether it's performing artist, visual artist, a creator of artistic works in some capacity, the application process is going to be much the same. So we're going to use artists very generally, and also in this specific context, we will talk about singers and composers. So let's take a look at the Fulbright U.S. student program. Now, the Fulbright U.S. student program is, again, part of a series of offerings that are funded by the U.S. State Department and are administered by the Institute for International Education, or IIE, which is based in Washington, D.C. So let's take a look at their program here. And if you're wondering about the spread here, it touches almost every country in the world. There are a few where, for reasons of lack of security or diplomatic relations, we don't have an exchange. But if we were to say, take a look here at East Asia Pacific here, you'll see that we have a very large portion of the world covered. Now, North Korea is not included for a variety of reasons that I don't think we need to go into. Also, you will find that at this very moment, there are, in this case, the grade ones are not part of that region here. But if we're to look at this, we see even North Macedonia, which is a fairly small country. It has study and research awards available for quote unquote student researchers and English teaching assistant awards. Let's talk about what those mean. So an English teaching assistant award, it's usually done by someone who has is going to be completing or has just completed a bachelor's degree, but it could be these other levels. And they want to go to another country for a 9-month period, teach English, get paid for it, get some training along the way, and then also in the process serve as cultural ambassadors representing the United States at different functions. When I was a Fulbrighter, the Fulbright English teaching assistants participated in teacher training workshops and outreach programs that visited schools and other things as part of give people contact with people from the United States. And you'll see that, it is fairly broad. Undergraduate degrees in the humanities and social sciences, which in this case, things which will give you a lot of stuff to draw on for teaching, are preferred, but it's not required. There are people who have business degrees, for example, science degrees who have done it and done very well, but because it says these are preferred, part of what you'd want your narrative to do is to make clear why you are well qualified for this particular position. Because as it says, you'll not just be teaching English, but also explaining to the United States to local citizens with little contextual understanding of America. All right. Now, if we look at this, we see there's no foreign language proficiency required, which is true for most English teaching assistant and host countries. Now, does it hurt? Absolutely not. When I was working with Fulbright ETAs, they had some experience in the local language of government, not as much as I did, but enough to really make a lot of those activities of daily living a lot easier. And then, the exact amount paid will vary a little bit by the year because costs go up, and that they try and make sure that it is appropriate for the cost of living in the host country. And in many of these countries, the cost of living is much less, and so you can save a bit of money there. A lot of people will apply to graduate school, apply to Fulbright ETA, and then they'll defer their graduate degree to do the Fulbright ETA, and then drop back in to their studies. But that's one type of award. Now, if we're looking at the different Fulbright awards here, we have a variety of selections here, but the ETA is really kind of a category in itself, and you have to pick whether you're applying for the main Fulbright U.S. student program or one of the other ones. So you can apply for the U.S. student program's regular stream and the English teaching assistants in the same year. But let's take a look at this types of awards page. So when most people think of Fulbright, they think of the study and research awards, where you might be taking classes in another country, but you might also be doing an independent research project. And that's probably a function of what level of study you are. If you have just finished your bachelor's when you begin the Fulbright, you might be taking master's level classes. You might be doing field research, though, if you're a doctoral student or working in a lab. When I was in Madagascar, we had a lot of researchers who were off in the rainforest doing observational projects, collecting data, uh, biosurveys, things like that. But we see that there are these two mainstreams, the study research and then the English teaching assistant, and there are also a few special programs. So for example, if you were getting a degree in public health, or if you were getting a medical doctorate, whether that's osteopathic or allopathic, you would be potentially able to apply for this Fulbright Fogarty Fellowship in Public Health. And it has some special things that might be of interest to you if you're applying for that. It's a relatively new program. It hasn't been running for 15 years yet, but it does have particular prestige and access to things involved. And so we can see that part of it, they're placing people in a specific set of countries. Now, I just got back from doing some research and study in Peru, which is a fantastic place for looking at public health projects, in part because they have so many environments. It's the 19th largest country in the world, and you have people coming in from different areas, for example, the jungle into the city, and different habits, different norms, different safety, different exposure to pathogens. And at the same time, if we look at these other countries on the list, all of these have a variety of geographies. Even Nepal. Nepal may be very mountainous, but there are very different ecosystems in one valley versus the mountain. And switch over to another valley, and you can get a very different set of conditions. So for someone who is embarking on a career in these fields, these are fantastic potential opportunities, and they are shaped by the geography. And we can see that there are universities that have affiliations set up for if you were to be applying to and accepted into this program. Now, if we looked at, say, here, we see that we have multiple options. So it's not just limited to, say, HIV/AIDS related research and not just related to maternal health or child health and neonatal health, but also we have under epidemiology and communicable disease, there's also a set of options there, and also under non-communicable disease and sexual health reproduction. So there are different tracks within it. You'll see that here for sexual and reproductive health, we see that there's only one of these universities that has signed up for that, where we have multiple branches as there. So it's something to keep in mind if there's a particular interest of yours. Cancer, for example, Peru is not one of the options there. So you may have a particular interest, and while the exact country that you want to specialize in might not be in this year cycle, it's something to keep in mind that you can do the kinds of things through this program. Just the given country selected, it may vary. All right, so let's back up a little bit here. So we were talking about the Fulbright Fogarty Fellowships in Public Health. And there's also some special things like the Fulbright National Geographic Award Program. And if you're doing something in the realm of anthropology or biosphere research, I would say strongly look at this because it has some really interesting things. It is attached to a big name, and you get the main benefits here plus some additional grant funds because this is co-sponsored by the National Geographic Society. Now, that is a particular thing that is probably going to be leveraging some additional background that you've been doing before that. But if you read this and you say, this sounds like me, what I'm doing, what I want to do, then strongly consider it. Okay, so now we've been talking about irrespective of specialty aside from those last two, but now let's make it a little bit more focused on the language and the uh, artistic areas that how that might come up. And I'll just mention that there is this civil rights fellowship there as well. So the in terms of a study and research award, when you are searching, there's the open one, but there are also these field-specific award opportunities. And so here, let's take a look at Fulbright Arts grants. So this will list a number of specific awards that are sponsored by the country or an institution in that country that are available specifically, they're allocated for artistic things. Now, I happen to know the site host for this one, the Fulbright Harriet Hale Woolley Awards, which are administered by the Fondation des États-Unis in Paris. And they do bring in and people working in the visual fine arts and music of all of those different slices that you see there. And so if you met the particular eligibility requirements, and we'll take a look at those in a moment, if you meet the eligibility requirements, it is a great potential award. Now, in this case, we look at it, we see it's going specifically to students, and they have a specific grant period that aligns more or less with the academic calendar and gives you some space at the end to wrap up projects, enjoy, potentially travel. And so this is something where you get the main Fulbright grant and then a special scholarship that gives you housing at the Fondation, which is pretty nice because that takes out what is probably your single largest cost from doing your project abroad. Okay, now if we were going to be doing some more research on that, I think the next thing would be to take a look at what comes up when you search for that opportunity. And so we have both the Fulbright page. This is just a university publicizing the opportunity. And now we can go to the host itself and see what they say about what they're looking for. And we see here that they will award up to 4 per year, and that there's particular requirements here that you want to be clear on what you are bringing or not bringing to the table. So it must be 21 to 30 years old. If you graduated from college at 16, congratulations, you have a few more years before you are eligible for that. If you're over 30, then you're out of the window there. This does require that you register at a recognized, generally speaking, accredited school for the visual arts or music. And some of that, due to differences in the educational system, might be through studying with a private teacher or mentor. But we have this combination of things where it can be combined with the Fulbright Award. All right, now backing up here. So if we look at this list here, so this is actually showing us a list of Fulbright affiliated awards for the country of France that are eligible for students. You can see we have a variety of here. There are 11 Fulbright English Teaching Awards sponsored by the French government, 20 Open Study Research Awards, and then see 4, 7, 9, 12, 16, 18 additional special awards. So that's not a small number to be considering, that if you just looked at this, you're missing out on almost half of the awards that are available. Also, I will just mention that if you were considering the Fulbright ETA, there is another French government program that brings American college graduates to France to teach English. There's also a lovely thing, and you should absolutely apply for both if you're considering doing that. But let's take a look at that arts part again, because one of the things that people often miss when they are researching the program is that you can actually search for these different types of awards. So this is under applicants, award search. So let's go ahead and we are going to do some searches here. So we're going to first look at award type. And let's say we're going for study and research. We want it to be more open-ended in our case, although many artists have actually done the UTA and used their free time to work on projects and presented those as part of their sharing cultures. And so we see open study research awards. Okay, we've got a lot. We can go academically through this. We know from our earlier check on France that, and then we'll just scroll down here. We know from our earlier check that there is more available than just the main study research awards. We've got those 20 and then those 18 additional ones. And often people will just click on this and assume that's everything. All right, so that said, let's go back and now add some search criteria here. So there's a question, do you want to be enrolling in a graduate degree program or do you want to be doing study research? And there is some overlap in practice, but you should be considering one to make your narrative clear. So let's say that we are looking for someone who has a master's degree. And so we're looking at someone who wants to do their own project there, so not be enrolled in classes. And we also want to go ahead and add the word music here. Now, at first glance, we think, okay, one award in Hungary, that seems a bit too restrictive. So just as if you're doing a library catalog search, we want to look and see, okay, what might we have marked that is excluding things unnecessarily? So let's take off that master's part. Still nothing, or nothing more. So we'll take off music. And what if we put, instead of music, we put arts? Well, we're not seeing that earlier one, even though it was classified that. So this is telling us a little bit about how the search is working. But we know that there's more stuff out there. We're just accidentally excluding them with our previous selections. So let's go ahead and flip this around. We're going to go ahead and deselect this. And now we're going to do a search for arts. All right, we have those three. We know that there's more out there. And so we might ask, where is that searching? It's searching the particular title of that. So South Korea one happens to be coded for that. In this case, the institutional award is the Fulbright Western Sydney University Scholarship in the Arts. This is the Fulbright Harriet Haley Woolley Award in the Arts. So it's not actually doing a full description search. It is searching through the titles of these particular awards. So we have identified an area where accidentally excluding more than we want. So let's go ahead and we're going to march things backwards. And let's take a look at, for example, to pick a country, Belgium. Let's say you're doing Belgium. And we look at here, we see a variety of things that are available in terms of degree level. If we look at the candidate profile, track record of successful independent study, that makes sense. You'll want one of your recommendation writers to make that clear. And we see they're telling you that their criteria for this include professional and academic excellence, a rationale for why is this happening in Belgium, which is ideally some particular tie-in. And we see that, oh, even though it wasn't in the earlier search, the Fulbright Commission in Brussels prioritizes projects in the arts with a wide variety of host institutions, and that they're reserving one specifically for European art in collaboration with a museum, nonprofit, or other artistic organization. And there is preference given to things before 1800. So if you were doing music before that had a tie-in with the Low Countries, and with Belgium in particular, that's a great tie-in. They've told you specifically, hey, here's something that we are looking for. And if you have that or have a project that would do that, great. Now, as for satisfying this, some of that will be in your narrative. A lot of it will be in your recommendation letters with other people saying, hey, you have this stuff. Okay, now if we look at this in terms of eligibility, we see that you can't have lived there for 6 months in the year prior to the grant. So if, say, you've done a 6-month DOT award, then in Germany, then this would not be the year to apply for that if they had that exact same 6-month criteria. And you see, they recommend that you have at least novice proficiency in one of the 3 official languages, at least. If you have more than novice, awesome. If you've got none of that, you probably want to make a case that you can learn it or that you are learning it. So many applicants have had your language assessment and coupled that with their study plan before. And then I will just personally put a plug. If you speak the local language or languages, you will get a lot more and give a lot more in the exchange. Now, it says that they recommend and letters, but they're not required at the deadline for the application. So, this is something where I would say take it as a strong suggestion that this will help your application if you have a letter, but it's not 100% required. So please don't let that stop you from applying. But if you are working a couple months in advance, you should be able to get a letter of affiliation and include that and have someone saying, hey, I really like this person. They will do great. They will add something that we don't have. I expect that they will be a great contribution, and I recommend that you give them the award, essentially. All right, now let's back up here. So what if you are in a different category here? So we've been looking at the student awards for the moment. Well, let's take a trip back and go to one of the other links on our slide. So let's look at the Fulbright Scholar Program, which is looking at people at a more advanced phase of their career. Now, again, this works both ways. You have US scholars going to other countries, non-US scholars coming to the US. You have US institutions that are hosting, and then alumni who are participating and supporting. So I was one of the US scholars going to another country. Now I'm one of the alumni. That's one of the reasons I teach these workshops, because part of what I do is I promote the Fulbright program. Now you'll see just from our menu here that there are a variety of awards, and they'll tell you a little bit about what they have in mind. So International Education Administrator, just what it sounds like. Those tend to be shorter exchanges because you have your other job. Postdoctoral, people have completed their doctorate and they're usually either early career faculty or early career after that they've received a doctorate. Well, let's take a look at these scholar awards here. And we're going to open up that types and activities here. And so if we look at types of activities, we have teaching and research, and professional project. Now, when I applied for the program, I did a teaching and research proposal, which most countries will allow both. There are some specific ones, but you'll see that the definition of research includes artistic research, and that can include things like musical compositions, other artistic compositions like paintings or sculpture, perhaps, films. And then if we look at professional project, we have other things like artist residencies, performances of your works, presentations of your works. So this is actually rather broad in what you can do, and that there's some of these that are more umbrellas that are wide, and some are umbrellas that are more narrow. So let's go ahead and let's take a look here. We're going to back up to the main page. And so we'll go to information for US scholars. And let's go ahead and explore all Fulbright Scholar programs. So we have these different divisions here. So for example, postdoctoral awards. Yeah, I received my doctorate 11 years ago, so I'm not eligible for that. But because it is planned at people who are in that professional period, that is something where they take that in mind according to criteria. So you're not going against people who have, say, been university professors for 20 years. It's rating you according to other people who are in this earlier stage of their career. Now, I mentioned the Fulbright International Administrative Awards. Those tend to be these 2-week intensive seminars here. So you can network, meet other people, share ideas. And then we have some special ones like the Public Policy Fellowship, Arctic Initiative, the Amazonia Initiative, which I think is really cool. And some of these are eligible for non-US scholars as well. And then we have the main program here with the Scholar Awards and the Distinguished Scholar Awards from people who are at different stages of their career. And that's in part because if you are very advanced in your career, the cost of your stepping away from that may be much higher than others. So let's take a look at the Fulbright Scholar part here. And if we were to go ahead and look at the description here, we have breakdown of the specialty programs. Let's go right to this one. And we see here that we have a full list here, 330 awards. So that's it's many countries that have more than one available. And let's go ahead. And in this case, we have disciplines here. So let's go ahead and let's say that you are a musician. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to select music here and see what happens when you apply that search. So right now we have 330 awards showing. We just search for music and it drops to 16. And again, that's not saying that there are only 16 that you can apply for. That's 16 that specifically mention music in the description, as opposed to the open awards where it says open to all disciplines. So looking at this, we might see, oh, hold on. Earlier we were looking at France. We were looking at the Harriet Woolley Student Awards. Well, there's also a French Studies, Broad, Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences. You can do 3 to 6 months, and it's open to a variety of disciplines. And people doing this will be doing a research project of your choosing. Research, again, including creating and presenting works per our earlier description. So that's actually a pretty nice exchange if you're looking to go away for, say, a semester's leave or a summer's leave. And we see that the 3 to 6 months, well, usually it's easier if you're starting in the fall with everyone else. But there's also some potential flexibility here. Now, if you're applying for this specific one, well, they give exactly one award. And that might be something where you're really interested in this and you put a lot of work into the best foot forward. Or you might say, hold on, let me back up here. What if instead of looking at music specifically, I said, I'm really interested in France. I want to see the opportunities for France. And we have, research in Eastern France, French studies. Okay, that looks familiar. Southwestern France, Northern France, migration studies. Okay, and if we were to look at, let's say, let's go with this Research in Eastern France award, we'll see that it is open to many different disciplines, but let's show more. We see that much of this is tilting more towards the physical sciences. Now it's pretty broad. We have engineering, we have medical sciences, we have more in there, but that is, this looks like the disciplines that have been listed here are not ones where music is the best fit for this particular one. So that's all right. Let's take a look at Southwestern France. And we see that sought in all disciplines. So if you are not bound to a particular area, but the general geography of the country, is fine, we see, oh, there are 2 awards instead of just 1. So if you're applying for this specific category, it's actually open to all disciplines. So we're not limited to just the one that we saw earlier. Now, coming back here to look at the options for France, there's also this one that just says all disciplines. So that is exactly what it sounds like. It is completely open. They're up to 6, and those are not tied to a particular university. So if they're, or a particular region within the country. So if you had an idea and you're comfortable doing that in more than one place, or let's change that wording and say your project is feasible to do in more than one place, that being in the country will be sufficient for the access for the things that you need. Then you can seek out a site host to potentially apply for that. So let's say we're looking at the Nouvelle-Aquitaine Award here. All right, now, if you had no prior idea of the geography, you could go ahead and just search for example, Aquitaine universities and see what comes up. Now, is EduRank a website that you'll be looking at otherwise? Maybe, maybe not. But it does tell you that there are at least 14 universities there. And this English language Wikipedia page only tells you about 6 entries there. But we see, oh, universities and colleges in Poitiers or in La Rochelle, that's actually more than you would have thought from the preview. So these are starting points, and you might say, well, let's say that music is your thing, and you say, okay, you know what? I've heard a lot about Bordeaux. Let me take a look at some of these schools here. Now, in this case, University of Bordeaux is probably the flagship region for the flagship university for the region. Let's take a look what happens when we see that. We have more than 50,000 students. Okay, that's pretty large. So there's usually some specialization. And we look and we see a variety of fields here. Now, at this point, you might be saying, okay, I want to go to the university website and see what they have. And something that people often discover early is that European websites are often organized differently for a university than they are for US institutions. And that's fine. We're going to go ahead and say, let's see, oh, they have an English language selector. All right. And so you then want to do some searching and see, okay, what can I find about the programs that are here? Now, I will tell you that the English and French versions sometimes are separate but parallel-ish websites, and sometimes it's a direct translation of the material on the page. Let's go here to education and programs. And looking at this, we see there are different diplomas that we could look at, or look at disciplines, which is probably where we're going to start, and see, okay, we don't happen to have music listed there, no music. But what else do we have that might possibly be of interest? Well, we see anthropology. Many music scholars and performers have been housed in anthropology departments. We have a lot of sciences here. Education, often crossover, sociology, sciences du vivant, that should be interesting. But let's go ahead and take a look at anthropology here. And so this is a link to their master's degree in anthropology. And so if your goal is to go and be housed in a department, and let's say you are interested in teaching, a department that does not have expertise in your specific field, but that is related or adjacent, is a great host, because there's an automatic built-in narrative for what you are bringing that they don't have. Now, you might be looking, so let's say you're a music composer and you're looking for collaborators at the institution. You might then say, well, I really want to have other musicians there, other musicians who are studying. And so you might say, this isn't the university for me. But let's go ahead and take it at the University of Poitiers. And so we go ahead, we're going to go right to the academic programs link. And so this is organized into 14 faculties, roughly comparable to colleges as within a university. And we see that they have humanities, languages, and arts. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll just take a look at the bachelor's degree and professional bachelor's degree programs to start. So looking at the professional bachelor's degrees, at this moment, we're not seeing anything. But if we look at the regular bachelor's, let's see what we find. Musicology, musical practice and culture, music interpretation. And there's a tie-in with the local conservatory. Okay, so if you're a musician, now we found they have a degree program relevant to that. We see there's some language study. So if there are students studying English, it might be a great adjunct to things in your specialty to also do things that are English and American cultural appreciation. And if we were to now zero in on, let's say, that musicology program. So looking at that, we see it's a 3-year program, and that among other things, technical and artistic competencies is communication. And so we have a program that is offering a degree. And if it's not offering a performance thing, that actually might be even better because you could be creating opportunities, especially because they list here that music, spectacle, arts, performing arts are part of what this is training students in. And so if you are bringing in expertise that they don't have on their faculty, you can look at the classes here that are offered and see, okay, vocal formation. So if you're coming in and you're a professional singer, that might be something where you have the opportunity to supplement because they have those classes available, but they don't necessarily have something for people who have completed those classes to continue on. And so looking at that, that will give you a basis for questions for reaching out to the chair of the department and to ask, hi, I'm interested in applying for a Fulbright. I was considering proposing these things. Could we have a conversation about what would be most of interest to your department? And that is a great starting point because it takes us right to the how might they imagine you fitting into their institution, to their department. And that gives you something to have a conversation before you request a letter of invitation to come to that institution. We're coming near to the end of our time here, so let's just do some quick wrap up here. Now, if you are looking at the main Fulbright US student deadline, that's usually going to be October 8th or thereabouts. But the faculty deadlines tend to be in September, and you may have a September or even August institutional deadline internally if you're applying as a Fulbright US student. So the moral here is that you should check the specific program that you're applying for and make sure that you know when that application is, because they are very strict and do not accept late applications. All right, if you happen to be working on an application here, you are more than welcome to come to the Online Writing Center. Just go to my.acu.edu under Academic Resources, select Online Writing Center, and follow the prompts from there to make an appointment. We have email appointments where you schedule time, and by that time, you upload a copy of your paper. We send you feedback within 24 hours. And real-time or Zoom appointments where you log into the system and you get your feedback and an active conversation. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up for now. And again, you're more than welcome to come to the ACU Online Writing Center for help with a fellowship or scholarship application. Have a good night.